think we're going live. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to Houston. We have a problem. This is episode 90 of my live stream, which is just weird to think about. That I've basically done 3 months of days worth of live streams. That's crazy. I've got Christopher Britt on the show today. He is famous for being Citadel Air on Twitter and the Citadel Air website. And Citadel is really mad at him for his parody. They're claiming that he's infringing on their copyright of their non-existent airline. And they've sought arbitration, right? That's what they're going through. And then
No, that's yes, by default arbitration, we had to start with arbitration.
Okay.
Because what they attacked first, in addition to like intellectual property, was the actual domain name. Because they've tried twice before to get Twitter to suspend the account.
Yeah.
It was reinstated, but then their lawyers were pretty bright and went after the domain, knowing that if they, it's one of the legs on my stool for protection.
Yeah.
If they kick that leg out, then Twitter would inevitably fold, which happened within days. Coincidentally, the same day I filed against them in federal court.
Okay. So you're doing essentially a preemptive countersuit.
Yeah, actually lost we lost the arbitration. That's why I had to.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have had to turn over CitadelAir.com and other related like intellectual property. So the Twitter, any of the content, things of that nature would be inevitably. Why they want to own CitadelAir.com, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the panel found in a rather strange decision, all of which I've made public, that I had registered in bad faith, that I was monetizing it somehow, and that it was indeed a legitimate airline.
Well, maybe you should go buy a Cessna and just paint Citadel Air down the side, and
the notion crossed my mind.
Just leave it in a farm field somewhere.
the notion crossed my mind, but like I've never made a cent. That's one of the cornerstones of parody of fair use is that you're not monetizing it. It's satire. It's parody. It's protected. If I was making money off it and making money off their trademark, different story.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's get a little background on you and like who you are, what you do, what brought you to the meme stock movement, and go.
Okay, open book.
Obviously, what does he do? Yeah.
Yeah. To be frank, I had to kind of dox myself in the federal lawsuit. So that's what how my name and like home address and other wonderful details about me, became public. But that was my decision. Born and raised on the East Coast, Boston, Massachusetts. May or may not have attended undergrad with someone that does not identify as a cat, who was a year behind me. Went on post-ed, and I often just joke and say I'm an overeducated, underpaid consultant. Just because of the niche specialty I'm in. But I've been investing for, 7 or 10 years personally, and have done some years better than others. I've was on Wall Street Bets when it was like, sub 1 million people before they had, everyone just kind of rolled in there, made a few bucks there. So I've been doing that, was that 3 or 4 years, part of that, more quiet than anything, just kind of lurking or, commenting. But, I got into, I don't disclose positions, as I've said from day one, but I have a vested interest in both AMC and GME, at full disclosure. I hold securities or positions in both securities. And I have no opinion on one over the other. And I got in early and haven't sold anything yet. I think one of your more famous viral videos that was going out was you saying that it was at 40 and then it went up to like 400 and then went back
Yeah.
down, and so I went for the January ride and I'm still here.
Yeah.
But that's about the gist of about the gist of it. If I have specific questions, I can go into more detail. But
All right. So what was the your muse for creating a parody account of an airline that doesn't exist based upon Citadel? Like what was it because like people were doing flight tracking of Griffin's airplane, right? They're following it around the world. Oh, it's in like Bulgaria right now. What's that mean? Were you involved with that? Any of that stuff?
yeah, I was one of the first, if not the first, to not only to find his FAA reg, but also find a way to get around the restrict. He got a waiver, obviously, from the FAA for privacy or security reasons, so that it's not trackable by traditional methods.
Yeah.
You have to use secondary methods. But in order to even get that far, you have to figure out which one of his holding and shell companies the asset's sitting in. So it took me about 3 or 4 days of research back in February, maybe early March, just because I wanted to track his plane. I thought it'd be cool to like post it.
Yeah.
Like where in the world is Kenny? And realized that probably wouldn't be prudent under my personal account.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, well, how do I do this? And then I was looking up different names. The Citadel Air was not trademarked. The domain was available, and it was the at Citadel Air on Twitter was also available, and that's how the genesis of Citadel Air. I think it was early March, mid March, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So how many shell companies buried deep was his airplane? Because I know we've seen news about Jeffrey Epstein's airplane in the news a lot, and then it was like a shell company that owned a shell company that owned a shell company that owned all of his airplanes or something. It was like 3 or 4 layers deep. How far did it have to go to like how many Delaware corporations you have to go through to get to Kenny's plane?
It wasn't so much like the assets that he shields are under one LLC, which are a majority of his personal assets.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a while to figure out, so there's maybe one or two. How many degrees between him and that LLC, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I reviewed hundreds that had to meet very specific criteria. Because you can name it anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you called it like, Mayo Lovers LLC, and we'd have no idea that it had anything to do with his plane, his house, etc. So that's where the research came in, because I had to match it up against public records in Chicago, Florida, because I didn't want to publish anything erroneous.
Yeah.
I wanted beyond a reasonable doubt that that the the Global Express Jet 6000 was actually indeed his, and most importantly, I want to make sure I was not publishing the wife or soon to be ex-wife and kids' personal travel, because he has another plane that they use.
Yeah.
So that's why it took a couple of days. Because you can't even find any photos on the internet of his tail number. Like his PR team they're pretty good at scrubbing.
Oh, he really like does not like people talking shit about him. It is very obvious, very evident that he spends a lot of time either he has somebody searching the internet on news about him, or he himself is logging in going, these darn kids. He takes that. He seems to take that stuff really to heart. I mean. Don't be shitty.
I mean,
don't people talking about you.
I mean, what do you expect? I mean, when you're one of the wealthiest people in America, controlling a multifaceted, not only hedge fund, but a multifaceted enterprise that is like ensconced in our financial system.
Yeah.
But the guy, I mean, if you read some of our response to their filing, I think I diagnosed him with something like funny with being like. His problem was he was like thin-skinned or something. Like, like he just couldn't take a joke. And it's like, the things that I memed, and we can get into that, but like there was no, nothing slanderous or libelous referenced it, or, it fell within Twitter guidelines.
Yeah.
I always made sure that, it was never push the envelope, maybe, cross that line. I was very careful. One, I didn't want to get sued.
Yeah.
And here we are. And two, I didn't want. I'd seen so many other accounts, even though they were parody, and in my opinion, legitimately using Twitter and the platform. They weren't, breaching terms of service. Just get arbitrarily booted, and we saw that, with the what was it, the Epstein trial tracker and Nancy Pelosi's portfolio tracker, and
Yeah.
the same day it happened to me. The people that ran those emailed me and were like, "Hey, were you taken out too?" But here we are. So no, I don't think you can take a joke.
Yeah. There's lots of funny ones that would pop up and get really popular for like 2 months, then they'll just disappear one day. A lot of the Jim Cramer ones all vanished. Coke Rat Kramer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. He and I both started at the same time,
Yeah.
and
He got booted like three
and
or four times.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's on his third or fourth iteration. And what concerned me was that I think it was the second time he got banned from Twitter, had to make the second account or third account. It was I don't know how Twitter does it. Maybe it had something to do with his IMEI or his SIM number, but he was device locked, so he couldn't even create a new use
Oh wow.
his cell phone. So he had to go get a new, like a secondary, like a burner phone just
Yeah.
for Twitter. It was I
And
remember
the
talking
next
about
step probably do IP, and then have to like be doing nothing but VPNs and yeah.
right.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I was looking at the Mac number and they're like, delete.
Yeah, that's no joke. He was like, yeah, I had to go pick up a burner iPhone. I was
Yeah.
like, are you serious?
Well,
And he
my,
was like, yeah.
my original account, my The Houston Wade account, got deleted the day after my video with Josh Hamilton went viral. And
Really?
yeah, so I cracked it. I follow Andy Richter, Conan O'Brien's sidekick,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were talking about this joke about his daughter. They had ordered takeout, and she'd ordered vodka bolognese or something like that, and all vodka, and the like DoorDash person had to card his daughter. And so somebody else had made a joke about what would happen if she had ordered puttanesca, and I just replied with it like no one knew what puttanesca meant, so I just replied with like the literal meaning of what puttanesca means in Italian,
Sure.
and I got my entire 10,000 follower account got banned by Twitter for hate speech. 'Cause for those who don't know, puttanesca is the sauce of the ladies of the night. If you know what
Uh,
puta means, well, there you
uh,
go. So I got my whole account got deleted like within 12 hours of that video going live, and it's probably my stalker that was flagging it, but could have been someone at Citadel. I don't know. It's
who knows?
yeah,
It's hard to actually know, because to this day, I've had no, although submitted support tickets and appealed the initial suspension, which they reviewed for a week and then they made it final after a week. I just but I never got an email. I've opened support tickets. I've appealed. My attorneys have reached out. All on deaf ears, man. There's no comment. They won't respond.
yeah,
So it lends some credence to my, not tinfoil hats aside, that that there's an ulterior motive or agenda,
yeah,
which is fine. But I mean, it's just weird that on the prior two times when I got suspended for whatever they claimed, that I had done, because it's not entirely clear, when you get one of those 12-hour suspension things and then you respond. This
yeah,
is before you could delete whatever the content was.
yeah,
I responded and sent them all my documentation, and because I got an email notification, and I was cleared within a couple hours. With this one, I just logged in, and Twitter started acting wonky, and then I was like, I think I know what's coming, and then within half an hour,
yeah, yeah,
within half an hour, I was in read only mode for about a week, and to everyone else looked like I was suspended, but there was a loophole. I could still join like Twitter Spaces and whatnot, but after a week, they sent the email and they were like, "Yeah, you're banned." But well, they didn't send the email. Pardon me. I went to log in again, and it was like, this account's been permanently banned.
yeah.
Versus actually sending me an email. But
That stuff is wild. Like I there's accounts from like straight up neo Nazis who commit mass shootings, and their accounts totally fine. Like
yeah,
yeah,
people have said it before. They're like, well, the Taliban has, Twitter accounts, etc. And I'm like, yeah, they do. Although we have to recognize them as, official government, entity now, but I guess, someone thought they were making a joke the other day that said they had a bullet with my name on it, for me. And not the first time there's been weird threats thrown my way, but, one of my followers, kind of pointed out to me and said they reported it, and Twitter got back to them and said, no problem with that. There's, gun violence. Don't worry about it. That's no TOS violation there. So it's so arbitrary.
It is. It's wild. Did you do this parody across any other platforms, or was it just Twitter and your website?
It was solely Twitter.
Yeah.
And I have a YouTube channel, but I don't really. My identity wasn't out there before, so I think if anything, I pushed some of the videos I did. I was going to use that. I work with Bull House, a podcast, so I was on there twice a week, but and as Citadel Air, but my primary platform was Twitter. As of right now, it's the website. And it's a pain in the ass, to be frank, because Twitter was a nice little handy archive, but exactly. I have to put everything, at least some of the better pieces back up on the website, and some of the new stuff I've made I haven't had an opportunity to upload yet, but soon. But you can at least find all 64 pages of their ridiculousness.
I read through that the other day. It was it just seemed like I'm really butthurt. I'm really butthurt. I am really, really butthurt. And they're like, people will obviously confuse this website with a legitimate airline. Like, you're not selling tickets, man. You're not.
No, and they're one of their arguments. My favorite. There's a couple of good ones. One of them was that it took them a while to figure out who owned the domain because I use a proxy or privacy service,
which is totally normal for any website. Yeah,
fairly standard industry practice. It's 101. And they said I must be up to something nefarious because I'm using a proxy and a privacy service. So my attorney's response were in kind. By using complaint against logic, then their CEO, Kenny, has got to be guilty of nefarious deeds as well because he got a special waiver from the FAA, for privacy reasons. Yeah. On the plane. So I said, what nefarious things is he up to?
Who is Citadel.com? Let's see who owns them.
I can't remember if they use a service or if they just did it through one of their holding companies in Chicago. Yeah. It's CE something LLC.
Contract prohibited. Registered contract domain. Nope, they're registered under Citadel. Yeah. Okay. Citadel Group.
My argument still stands about his plane, though. I mean, if you're going to accuse me of obfuscating, ownership of a domain name for privacy reasons, you whip that on the side of your plane. That you're. You should be exempt.
Yep.
What nefarious shit are you up to that you just
exactly. Up? Yeah. It is wild that somebody's rich enough that they can have a his and hers airplane to privately ferry them around the world. Just boggles my mind. I've got it. What is it? G5, G6? One of those. What kind of
his is a 2012 Global Express jet 6000. So it can. I mean, if you strip it down, you can get maybe 30-ish people in there. But he's not set up for that.
Yeah, he's set up for luxury. Yeah.
Luxury, and I mean, there's a fairly sizable bedroom in there.
Yep.
So
it's a plane like that, you're gonna fly anywhere. You're looking at $40,000 in fuel, and it's ridiculous to just blows my mind. I'm like. One of his flights could take care of my student loans.
No joke. I ran I still have the Excel spreadsheet, and I should probably republish it, but I figured out what the average operating cost was for, taking into consideration, a number of variables. But I think it was, don't hold me to the number, but it was between $4,000 and $5,000 an hour, which is commensurate. But that I don't know how he staffs it in terms of flight crew.
Exactly, you got to have a couple flight attendants. You're gonna have a couple of pilots. You're gonna have,
So I just threw in some rough numbers, but I mean, conservatively, I would have said 3,000, 3,500, but not me knowing, figuring even depreciation and things like that, it was, plus 4K an hour. And, so the commuter flights daily to, almost Miami.
Oh yeah, he's going like what, Naples and Chicago and Naples and New York, right?
Yeah. I think that's when he had the, what was it, the traders down and staying at the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
They rented the whole, what was it, either the whole place or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
they had their own bubble, their NBA bubble for all of their traders for like a year. Yeah.
No joke.
At a 5-star hotel. Man. Someone just said Monkey Butt left to go take a Kramer. Man, I just so what's your game plan? Where are you in the lot? You filed in federal court, I assume. And...
Yeah, basically, sorry, I'm just reading some of the messages here. Basically, so because they attacked the domain name like under the ICANN registry, or they call it a UDRP, it has to go to arbitration.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. But and then they charge you more if you want it to be fair, and not just have a one-person panel make a decision.
Yeah.
It costs you an extra, I don't know, it cost me an extra couple of grand to get a panel of 3, which is the most you can get.
Yeah.
Which is usually not an issue. The lawyers I have, I've been doing this for 20 years. They're very good. They win 9 out of 10. They were shocked at the outcome, needless to say. So much so that they were like, if you want to take this to federal court, they were like, if this goes in front of a judge, they're like, this is slam dunk. But we're ready to rock if you want to go. So because the arbitration found that nope, I'm in the wrong, I'm using the name in bad faith, and within 10 days, basically the registrars would transfer ownership take it from me automatically. Yeah. It's kind of like a T+10 settlement, we'll call it.
Okay.
And anything to do with it would then just be transferred over to Citadel. The only way to put that on pause is to file, they call it like a de novo, which is like a new legal filing. To make it more difficult, Citadel opted for Arizona, because that's where my registrar is, or it could have been done in Arizona, or it could have been done in Boston, quite literally, 10 minutes from my house. But nope, Arizona it is. So as soon as we filed that, that means that T+10 settlement of the asset of, the domain name is on hold.
Okay.
And I kicked that to Twitter saying, look, if they're saying, if they're using this paperwork as a means to justify that I had some sort of trademark infringement or whatnot, or that decision is not final yet. The panelists may have said, the arbiters may have said one thing, but if it's being challenged, it's rendered moot until a judge or magistrate rules on the matter.
I wonder how many airplane flights they've spent on this with their lawyers so far. Like, what's the equivalent?
I don't know. I know a little, the name of their firm that handles these issues. I know of. I don't know personally. I don't know anyone there. But I generally know from working with attorneys in the past what they're billing. I mean, I'm sure they're obviously on retainer, but I have a ballpark, and the amount that they already spent to even get to the domain complaint, the UDRP arbitration process, was, in my opinion, significant. And what's interesting to me is that, as whatever people found my content, it was mostly, comedy and memes, but there was some like legit info out there that was, trying to put out like FUD and just if there was garbage out there, then I would put out the truth. I would always vet something before posting it.
Yeah.
But someone, and I know I'm going to reference her, like Kat Stryker. I know her. She gets a cease and desist letter,
Yeah.
right? Like I mean, she can do what she wants, but she got the courtesy of a letter, like a knock at the door, an email. Hey, would you like? We want you to stop.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. They went straight to litigation.
Yeah.
So to me, either someone's very sensitive or butthurt, as you put it, or something I'm doing is right.
Yeah. And it's it's kind of what you heard of the Streisand effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Dr.
those who don't know,
Kumbhath was the first to tweet about that. But push it. I was radio silent about all of this going on because I didn't want the attention. But she found an article, asked me if she could blast it out, and I said sure. And she tagged Streisand effect. But please, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So the long story short, Streisand effect. Barbara Streisand. Someone wrote a story. I think it was about her house in California, something like that, in Malibu or whatever.
It was a photo. I think they had a photo or something.
Yeah, like aerial photo of her house, and no one cared. No one knew about it. No one cared, and she was very upset and like went the legal route and tried to go scorched earth. And all of a sudden, people who had not paid attention to this photo at all, it was all over the news. And all of a sudden, the thing she was trying to like hide from everyone was everywhere. And now you were a medium-sized account, what, 5,000 followers, something like that?
Something like that. I didn't actively like track it, but it was like 5 or 6 maybe last time I checked. It wasn't like 100,000 followers or something. But
Devin Nunes did the same thing when he tried suing his parody accounts, the Devin Cow and Devin's mom alt account or whatever. And these accounts had like a couple hundred followers. The minute he filed in court, now there are millions of followers. And he was trying to sue a fake cow. And like,
right.
It's obviously the cow is not tweeting. This like,
right.
They don't have thumbs. And it's like, all of a sudden he put himself like into this giant spotlight by taking legal action against a small account. I mean, there are accounts out there with 100,000 followers. They're not saying things too different from what you're doing, and they're not trying to sue them. They're not. Yeah, it's silly. It's the Streisand effect has gone full bore, and I wouldn't doubt if along comes a news service eventually does a story on your David versus Goliath situation, and is like, this is ridiculous. This guy made a parody site, and now this giant $400 billion corporation is like bringing Thor's hammer against him. And it's
no joke.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's I don't know, like are you just kind of like, meh, it is what it is, or are there days where you're like, I don't feel like I can eat a meal? Or
no, it's funny. People have asked before, people like post these comments of like balls of steel and stuff like that. And I'm like, I appreciate like the positive, like, comments and feedback. But it doesn't feel any different. I think it may hit, once the matter is resolved that, I generally, I don't like pick fights. I don't start fights unless I can finish them. I'm not litigious at all by any means, which, doing this entire thing, like they brought it to my door. I didn't initiate it.
Yeah.
And I'm just defending myself, my intellectual property, so on and so forth. But there are times when, like over the holiday dinner, my family's like, so what's new? And I'm like, I'm suing the 45th wealthiest person in America right now. And just you hear a pin drop. Yeah. To me, it's an outlet. It was a creative outlet. While I was dealing with some the loss of my mother a few months before, a long battle with cancer, and plus we did the whole like the pandemic thing. People were just not really feeling all that positive, and I was like, what, I can do something creative and bring some positivity, some laughs, and feel good about it. That's why I got started.
Yeah.
Now I I don't think they anticipated that I was going to stand my ground, because I know that most don't.
I think everyone expects to roll over. Yeah.
It was their initial like complaint. Like they even had to do a complete 180 because they just used boilerplate. You know, they didn't actually.
Oh, your sound just cut out. It sounds like you're in another room.
Can you hear me?
There we go. All right. You started with boilerplate, and then you went on something else. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, no, my Zoom just hiccuped. Their initial complaint was pretty boilerplate, generic. And then I don't think they were expecting, because they were to hire someone to deal with this is not cheap either.
Yeah.
But they were not expecting a response. So my attorneys, responded, and it was a very, cohesive, cogent argument. Which all the documents are available on citadelair.com. There's a link to it that goes to the Bull House that's hosting it. But, so you can read it from start to finish of from time zero to, brings us to the federal filing in December. But it was clear they weren't prepared for that because their additional submission, they did a 180 on various points and things like that. And I have no idea if what their intentions are, with the lawsuit. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I just want my stuff, and I don't feel like I should have to give it up.
Yeah. So you're obviously have attorneys that are they specifically IP attorneys just for these internet domain things? Is that what kind of their specialty, or are they just in general First Amendment IP attorneys that do a wide range of things?
Lewis and Lynn is the firm. So Brett Lewis is one of the partners, and he's my attorney. And then there's two attorneys working on it, but within the firm. But they he's been doing it for 20 years, and it's a very, very, very boutique or niche industry because. There's been, a lot of industry publications about when, general practice attorneys or something like that try to defend, a UDRP dispute, and they fail miserably because it doesn't. My understanding is it doesn't operate the same way as a, it doesn't, as a court does or procedurally. The panel can make a decision one day based on. The fact A, and then the next day they could still make a decision on fact A, but find another way. There's no, it's not.
Who are the arbitrators in those cases? Who are the judges for those arbitration cases? Are they lawyers? Are they tech moguls? Are they how does one become an ICANN arbitrator decision maker?
The thought crossed my mind because during the process, when you opt to choose for 3, you submit, either you get or you choose a list of 5 names. You have a list of 5 on. You get to make your kind of jury selection. Yeah. Citadel got, their attorneys got to make theirs, and then there's just an independent one that's drawn at random. I forget what country the lead panelist was from, but it was somewhere in Europe. So the notion of First Amendment rights didn't really resonate, we suspect. But my understanding is they have to have some sort of background in law, either they're attorneys, or they're, they have relevant experience in the field. Yeah. I don't know if there's 300 of them. I forget. That number sounds about right. Don't quote me on it, but there's 300 of them, let's say, and they don't make a ton of money on each case, but. The thought crossed my mind. You're like, well, why can't I do this?
Yeah, exactly. Where do I apply?
Just seeing what the fees I was paying just to, have a forum to be no, you can't have it. This is mine. This is why. Yeah. And once my attorneys explained the fee structure and how much the panelists actually got paid from that, I was like, okay, so that's less interesting to me now. But they're credentialed somehow through ICANN, and it's I don't know the exact process, but my understanding is they have to have some sort of legal background, and that may vary from country to country. But there's a number of red flags in their findings that were just, I say red flags, but rather unusual. The record time we got a response, usually response time is about a month. I mean, we got it back in a week ish. And the panelists we chose, I think it's Diane Cable, a Harvard internet law professor. She was on the panel. In the past, like Brett, my from Linda Lewis, has argued many times with her on a panel. And whenever the panel has ruled, and if she doesn't agree with the panel's ruling, she always has issued, to my understanding, has always issued a dissenting opinion. There was a dissenting opinion absent, but the findings were, quote, a majority of the panel found. A majority. They didn't say the panel unanimously. So we'll never know if she was the one that had a dissenting opinion. I mean, all, based on his experience, and it's fair to say that's what we believe is she was the dissenting opinion. But it was unusual not to have any feed for if it wasn't either any kind of opinion, dissenting opinion given, or reasons why she didn't agree with the panel's findings, even if it's relatively short that she's in the past issued one. It was absent. So.
It's really interesting. Like parody law in the U.S. has always traditionally been sort of a piece of chainmail over folks in the First Amendment. Like it protects them from retribution from those they're trying to satirize. And it's different than, like, I try to remember a few years ago, maybe 20 years ago, there was a whole bunch of celebrities that either went through this arbitration, went through lawsuits to get their domains because people had registered like Madonna.com or CherylCrow.com or GeorgeClooney.com, and they were posing as the real people and selling merch and doing scams and stuff like that. Like there's a legitimate protection for the individual whose name they're using to profit off of. That is why those laws exist. But if you're cracking a joke about someone, especially a powerful person, and you're punching up, our Constitution, what we as Americans fundamentally believe is that you should be able to punch up and not face the state, cracking down on you. And so I'm wholeheartedly behind you. I'm no lawyer, but I do think that you've got a legit case, and that hopefully your lawyers absolutely just dominate in Arizona for you. Are you going to fly out and be present for when hearings happen, or are you going to have your lawyers do it all? Or I guess everything's on Zoom right now, probably. But
right now, everything thus far, Arizona, the U.S. District Court in Arizona has made it pretty easy and streamlined. Obviously there's Pacer for electronic filing, but they've gone above and beyond to make at least all of the filings super efficient. So I'm hoping that I would love to appear, but I don't. I'm not sure if and or when that will be. At least at this juncture, because I don't believe Citadel's responded yet. At least as of
when did you file?
I believe it was December. I have a stack of documents, but I'm not going to say at the time. I think it was December 8th or 10th.
Okay, so they've got basically what, 10 days? Yeah, 10 days, because I think under at least state court rules like CR3 or something that they've got 30 days to respond. If not, you can seek default. So
yeah, they're not going to. I doubt they're going to default, but. I was just interested to see what the response is going to be, because I mean it's the arbiter is going to rule out a First Amendment issue.
Yeah.
Like they're not bound by any. There's no governing law rules.
Exactly.
They just kind of police the domain. The domain world. hopefully using some sort of, cogent, coherent legal argument. In my case, I argued I don't think I don't think the complainant had one, but
Yeah.
They're very wealthy. They have means and resources, and I'm a nobody, as I say.
Yeah.
But it becomes a whole separate issue, in federal court, and I think, as you aptly said, Streisand. I mean, it now is becoming a court of public opinion, man. I mean, I've had a couple of smaller, independent, media and journalists reach out, which I've spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
There was a larger one which I'm considering an interview with, but so
Well,
we'll see.
I think you're ripe for a Rolling Stone or Vanity Fair article about this. Like they love like finding these little David versus Goliath stuff and pumping them out there. But I think Rolling Stone is owned by Citadel now, or someone with their subsidiaries, if I remember correctly. So maybe not Rolling Stone at the moment. Rolling Stone of 10 years ago, yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I was. Like there was a suggestion that I kick it to like the Wall Street Journal or something like that, and I was looking it up, and I was looking at it like, I don't think they're going to bite. One, because they don't like to put anything negative out there about financial institutions.
Yeah.
It's the Wall Street Journal, and two, there was some either direct or indirect interest from opposing party.
Yeah, you'll probably find that in a lot of at least, especially the online media sources, your market watches and groups like that. Yeah, it is like, a hydra. You're trying to chop off all these heads, and they're just, they're everywhere. They will probably fully blitz you at some point with media, and I hope that you can still like be chill and relaxed. And
I've weathered worse.
Yeah.
So it's if the interesting conversation was running it by the missus, being like, hey, so that parody thing I was doing for fun that wasn't making any money, taking up a lot of my time and tying up my weekends, which have gone. I'm like, yeah, they're taking it away from me, so I'm suing them. I just lost, and I'd really like to go to federal court to sue them, Citadel and Kenny, because I think it's an overreach. I don't want to have to turn over all my stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a pause, and she's like, okay. And I said, well, inevitably there might be some, media coverage. And I said, maybe, I don't know. And then I said, I'm not going to make, a lot of noise. And B, I was like, it puts like our information out there. Like quite literally, my home address in South Boston and south of Boston is listed.
Yeah.
And because of her job, I said, I can't imagine there being any blowback for you. But I told her, if you say no, it's dead in the water. It's done. It's done. We'll let it be. She was supportive. As long as it doesn't exceed, the value ratio, that doesn't start going the other way.
In your suit, are you suing for damages or just to block them from the transfer? I assume like they're doing Rule 11 sanctions and all that stuff to get attorney's fees out of them if it goes in your favor. But
yeah, I think that's like I don't know, which sounds bad because I kind of gave them like wide berth and latitude.
Yeah.
And I just said whatever's usual and customary. And I said, look, I'm not out to make money.
Yeah.
But I said if we're talking recovery of legal fees, etc. I was like, that's helpful.
Yeah.
But it's not like I went to their office and I fell down a flight of stairs.
Who left this puddle of water here? Yeah.
Right. It's not about money for me. It never has been. It never will be.
Yeah.
I got into this for the kind of inequality or injustice, and then that only got amplified when it when the shit came raining down on me, more inequality and injustice, in my opinion. So
what do you anticipate like the discovery process to be in this? Are you seeking any documents from them? Are they seeking any documents from you? Or you don't know yet because they haven't responded. So, but on your side, are there anything particular information that you want from them, or it's just like this is a First Amendment case, that's it?
Well, I don't. I have some latitude for my attorneys on what I can and can't speak on, but I don't really want to delve into discover. They haven't asked for anything, obviously, because they haven't responded. We haven't filed, any discovery motions yet, because again, they haven't responded yet, to the best of my knowledge. There would be some interesting things that I would be. To see if we would pass muster for discovery, because I mean they opened the door. So I think it has to be pertinent and germane to the case at hand. But I mean, there was the lawsuit with was it Robinhood in Florida, where erroneously through discovery they got the internal communique between et cetera. Obviously, that was pertinent to that case. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what we can and can't request, but I don't really want to. I don't.
You don't have to speculate.
No, and it's like if it, I have to talk to them more in depth and see how things are handled before we go down that road. But it could. I just kind of joked with someone else. I was like, discovery could be interesting. Because. But we'll see. We'll see how it's handled. I mean, if they, they asked me what I wanted, in terms of like you're talking about damages, and I was like, it's not about money. I said, I want my stuff. I want to keep them from unfairly taking it from me. It's Twitter's decision if they want to remove me from their platform. I said, I'm not suing Twitter. I said, but that I can deal with later if I so choose to. But I said, I paused and I was like, actually, you know what? I do want something. I was like, I don't care if it's 10 cents, 50 cents or $1. I was like, I want a check made payable to me from Citadel signed by Kenny. That's never going to get cashed and it's going to be framed. and I get to keep my stuff. And I said, because it's not about the money.
Well, you can keep it now. You can take the picture of it with your bank app. And then you can cash that $1 and then frame it.
That's true. But
futures now.
What drew me to them was their experience, in the industry, and Brett himself had a parody account that was censored in a very similar fashion. So he could identify, and they are professional, but they also have a sense of humor. So other firms that my I'm going to say general counsel, but my de facto attorney that deals with a number of business things and family matters. But it was outside his realm, and but he gave me a short list, and other ones I talked to, they were not very tech savvy, and they didn't understand why I'd want to protect a parody account. You know what I mean? But
that's good. Sounds like you at least found attorneys that are enjoying this. That sounds weird. Like that. My limited experiences in court is that judges actually like to read clever things, and if there's wit to it, they're like, "Oh, this is different." But if it's like there's something to be said about like lawyers that can bring the ridiculousness to the judge and show them like, this is silly, your time is being wasted because of these people, so let's not waste your time.
Right. And it's if you look at the initial complaint, they boilerplate, but our response was they knew that like my sense of dry humor and wit and cynicism, and they had seen some of the content I put out, so they put their own flair. And I've never seen attorneys do this in terms of filings, and there was little witty remarks embedded, but it was clear that it was sending a message that like this is clearly how would someone confuse Citadel Air with a hedge fund?
Yeah.
Like we don't get it, and
Yeah.
he's not operating an airline and doesn't intend to, um, and has not made a dollar, a cent,
Yeah.
and never monetized it. You know what I mean? So
Well, like my brother, back in the 80s, he owned a surfboard company called Avalanche. And he formed it in like 1983, somewhere in there. And throughout the 80s, he was
yeah,
making surfboards, and he was on the pro tour doing all the surfing stuff. And Avalanche snowboards came around in the late 80s and then sued him. And he was just he basically made surfboards at cost, and he wasn't really making much of a living at it. But he didn't have attorneys. He couldn't be like, hey, I had this name first. I do surfing, not snowboarding, and they came second. They're using my name, and because he was a small dude,
right.
he couldn't take on the big guys, and that was the end of Avalanche surfboards. Um, that
Sorry, man.
yeah, he wanted bigger and better things. He's fine, but it's that's different. That's you're looking at companies that are doing kind of similar things with similar name. Yes, there can be confusion, but there is no Citadel Airline. There is no, like, it's obvious that it's a parody account. It's obvious that you're there just poking fun and not for a moment. And I will testify to this at your trial. Not for a moment did I believe you were an actual airline associated with Citadel. It was not like, I don't think you'll be able to find anyone except the dumbest people on earth who are being paid as professional witnesses by Citadel who will testify to that fact.
Yeah, I wonder if we have paid, it seems to be paid like shill accounts on Twitter and Reddit and
Yeah,
everything. I wonder if there's like paid shill witnesses.
yeah, no
That's a
doubt.
thing.
That I wouldn't doubt, like, hey, some random person from Paducah, I'm going to pay you 10 grand. You're going to write this declaration saying, oh, so I was trying to book travel on Citadel Air. you know,
Yeah, like, and their claim was because I was building the website out and it kind of got backburnered because
yeah,
I had this kind of moral dilemma. I was going to automate because I got tired of like tracking his plane and then
yeah,
posting on Twitter, but I was going to automate the workflow part of that, and just have it on the web.
hmm
So like in real time, poof, and then it would send out an alert,
yeah.
through
Wherever the
Twitter
plane
and
landed, just a new message would
yeah.
pop up.
But the moral quandary was, or ethical quandary was like I don't know how I feel about that because it's a sensitive subject being because I'm like a very strong privacy advocate.
Yeah,
Like supported the EFF for years, so despite my feelings and sentiment towards Citadel, the company, and by extension, their CEO, Kenny, whatever I feel, I'm still a human. So, and he's still entitled to privacy.
yeah,
So, I didn't. I never finished that. I never went down that road.
yeah,
And when I was posting his actual live flight data, um, at the same time, I was concerned that what if some nutty person from God knows where
yeah,
is waiting for him at an airport, or something horrible happens,
yeah,
and that's on me because I was giving away his
yeah,
comings and goings at these airports that are small, etc. So anything I put out initially when I was posting on Twitter was delayed by half an hour,
yeah,
because I did not want to be responsible for if anything happened to him, family, etc.
yeah,
Because like I can sleep at night.
yeah,
That would be a problem. It wasn't just like would I be legally responsible? That wasn't the issue. It was
yeah,
I want to be responsible for someone doing something nutty.
yeah. No, that seems like a cogent, thoughtful way of going about that. I mean, you don't need to be like, hey, he's gonna be landing at this airport in 30 minutes, but
Right.
yeah, someone's like, oh, lock and load. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that would be. I mean, if we're sending a case after case of bananas to Melvin Capital
yeah,
to Gabe and fruit baskets to Citadel and various other jokes, I think who knows what someone's ultimately capable of, and
yeah,
so inevitably that's what hurt me. I think at the end with part of the panel is that the website was not fully developed, even though it's clear it was under development.
Yeah.
And if I had my parody content up there, it may have swayed things. It may not have. Who knows?
Yeah.
But here we are.
Are you building out the website more now in that parody realm since then?
Yeah, I've I had to an update up there first just to be like, hey, yeah, no, I'm still alive. So I've there's like an image gallery, and some of the videos I've done are there. Not all of it. It's still being updated. Some of the older content, is getting put up, and some new stuff I've made is going to go up. So it's being updated. I don't want to say like once a week. That sounds bad, but a couple times a week, it's getting refreshed.
Right on. Okay, so anything you'd like to add before we go to people basically peppering you with probably ridiculous questions?
Bring it on.
All right. Okay. So we did have a good one that I just sort of. Oh, the chat moved fast and I missed where it was. But someone was asking, is there anything that the community can do for you? Oh, that's from Sitting Bull. What, if anything, would you like to see in terms of support from those that care to do so?
I appreciate the question. Right from the get-go, I said that when people have asked, they were like, oh, where can I donate? Where's the GoFundMe? And immediately I was like, what are you talking about? So I was like, no, I'm not. No, I was like, I can't be the next Chad, like Chad 5.0. That's not my jam. I told people like, this is, my legal issue. I'm standing up for myself, my IP. There's been a lot of collateral damage on Twitter and other forums where people have been censored unfairly. So, in spirit, I stand up for them. But I represent, myself and my interests in the matter. And so I'm not soliciting donations. I'm funding this myself. I have the time and resources to do so. But what I've asked, if people are willing, is simply just spread the good word.
The apostles. Yeah.
The more eyeballs, because let's think about it. The optics are not good for them. If I was Citadel, maybe I wouldn't care, but the optics, at least to me, don't look good. It's the 45th wealthiest person in America goes out of his way to silence some guy from Boston that's running a parody account. I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
Who am I? Yeah. Right? Optics aren't good, and I think the more eyeballs, the more traction it gets. I know people within the community, always like some story about Citadel or something negative, and there's a lot of negative things out there. But I'm thinking it's helpful to either spread the word. There's I think a couple links on the website, and then on my personal Twitter, there's a couple of the articles that got put out there. But that's been most helpful. I think it's just spreading the word. And if anyone has contacts in the media they want to kick it to, by all means.
Yeah. Here's a good question.
Personal personal account I'm using in the interim, so people are welcome to DM me if they've got any info. But
all right, and that's Britt. What was it? Britt something.
Britt MD.
Britt MD. Okay, I'll put that in here. That's Britt, 2 T's, right?
Yes, sir.
MD. There we go. Okay, so that's in the chat if folks want to follow you on Twitter and see what that's all about. Okay, Sean Alexander asks, I heard that you were suing in Arizona court. So if so, Arizona State Retirement System owns 140,818 shares of AMC. Are they aware of this? Maybe they can bring pressure to resolve this quickly. Maybe get some people to help write briefs on your side that.
There's what do they call amicus briefs?
Yeah.
Friends of the court.
Yeah.
I don't see any harm in that. I don't want to waste the court's time, but I don't think an amicus brief would be a waste. I think if people are are comfortable doing that, by all means.
If there are lawyers on watching this, maybe you might want to look into maybe perhaps contributing a brief to the the suit. Help outline. Help make them stacks of evidence. To help Christopher here.
But I saw that what Sean said. He said, "I'm not suing the District Court of Arizona.
Yeah.
That's just where it was
in.
filed.
Suing in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm suing. I was suing in. Sorry, but I just want to clarify that. I was like, I like Arizona. No issues.
No issues there. Okay, I'm gonna try to scroll up here and see if there's, because I was not paying much attention to the chat here. See if there was much questions. Chakuseki, does Citadel Air serve flutes of carbonated and fermented mayonnaise as a light refreshment?
A trade secret, but we aim to please is what I always said when people ask weird questions.
Okay, looks like a bunch of Russians got deleted here, so maybe we got some Russian trolls jumping in. Okay.
I didn't know you had an airplane on your intro.
I do have an airplane on my intro. Yeah, I could put a little Citadel Air on the tail of that and see what happens.
I like that.
Okay. Oh goodness. Okay, trying to find questions for our guests, not questions about monkey butt in a cage fight with something called a meatball. Give me a moment here. Yeah, people just saying make them pay your legal fees, which I'm sure your attorneys have mentioned the rule. That's called Rule 11 sanctions in court. Basically meaning you can get the court to rule that the other party has to pay your legal fees using those what's outlined in Rule 11.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. And,
that's
where when I'm not out to personally financially gain. So, but if that's I just told them whatever is usual and customary.
Yeah.
Go for it.
That's it. I mean, they'll have their filing, and in that filing, the template will have Rule of sanctions, blah 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 blah. It's very standard. You don't want to get an attorney who forgets to put that in there because you did a terrible job hiring an attorney if that's the case. You want them to get that. And I'm sure, I seriously doubt this will ever make it to trial. Something like this, eventually they will realize they're hosed. They'll offer a settlement of some kind, and that will be that. They do not want the spectacle of a jury trial for a case like this. I think you will definitely avoid that. It might be a 2-year process. Yeah.
What's that?
It might be a 2-year process to get there, but
I've got time.
Yeah.
Because this stops the transfer of the domain. So I mean, like I said, I've got time.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Most cases, usually, these matters are settled well beforehand. But it's I'll entertain I'll entertain offers, but it's I still want I want to retain my IP. You know what I mean?
It's and you also looking at the 45th wealthiest man in the world, and if he can spend $40,000 a day commuting, he might be like, well, I don't care. Make it go as long as you can. Make it a 10-year process, whatever. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, because it is what it is. I mean, I've gotten a bunch of hate mail from calling me a shill, and I was like, okay, I used to legitimately get that as Citadel Air, and that's the I was the epitome of a shill, as a joke.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what am I shilling here? Yeah. Like it was another interview. Afterwards, there was all these comments how I was a shill. I was like, what am I shilling? Like, I didn't ask for any money.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for anything. I said, if anyone wants to push the links around to some of the articles, by all means. But I don't know. I just drag it out for 10 years just makes the PR process go, the negative optics remain. I mean, you can only SEO optimize so much, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I wonder, most of the time when there's a domain someone wants, they make a cash offer for it. So, why do you think Citadel just went straight for the arbitration process with ICANN and didn't just be like, hey, we're going to give you $50,000 if you just give us this domain? Because that's the same price, really, probably in the end for them.
I I don't know. It's like when I was talking about Cat Striker and the banners and trucks that she rolls with, and much respect for. Again, cease and desist letter.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of like a law enforcement knock and talk.
Yeah.
Whereas I got the kick down warrant where they booted in my front door.
Yeah.
No questions asked. I don't know. And I think, I mean, usually you see like those domains, they're parked and they say that they're for sale or something. And
Yeah.
there's some weird guidelines around what you can and can't do with that. But this was one of the cornerstones of keeping the Twitter platform viable.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had no intention of selling it. Maybe they did some research and realized I don't know. I'm just speculating that I'm can be stubborn as fuck. Sorry, but like it takes a lot to upset me, and it was like this was upsetting in the grand scheme of things. This was mildly upsetting. It's like more of like frustrating. Like, okay, and now I have to go through this process. What was infuriating was the finding. That it was just arbitrary and capricious. Like,
Yeah.
I've let it go, but it takes a lot to get me amped. Because I just go with the flow, but this was just a complete overreach. If they had picked up the phone, emailed, sent a letter, cease and desist, some sort of shot across the bow, I don't think it would have just entirely dissuaded me, but we could have addressed the issue before it started costing, started costing a ton of money. But
Yeah. They went for the sucker punch rather than like, I challenge you to a duel. Like, to give me some little heads up. Yeah.
I do appreciate this. Like in their due diligence, they went they had an investigator of sorts go down to the Caymans and photograph the address that I had put in as a joke on the website. And what was comical was because they had the right address, but whoever was taking the photos was taking a photo. They were at the wrong spot. They were like it was supposed to be 35 and they were at 31, or something like that. And 31 was like a mini mall, like a shopping plaza with the equivalent of like a 7-Eleven and a mom and pop store. They're like, clearly there's no legitimate airline being operated here. And it's like, no, if you went to where you were supposed to, like the address on the website, you would ended up at the Grand Cayman's National Bank headquarters. Like that was part of the joke. But to spend money on that, but I found amusing.
I would love to have been the private investigator sent to the Caymans for a week to go photograph. Oh, and my expenses are $500 an hour. It's going to be a 1-week job, first class. Yeah.
It was funny because I was looking at it, and they also submitted like I don't know, it was a Google Map or something like that, or equivalent. And I was like, that street address is wrong. And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, they're a block off. They were like off by a block. And I mean, Cayman's, it's not that big, but that margin of error was just kind of was like, well, I guess the attention to detail isn't there, but they'll throw money at it. Okay.
Let's hear Liz Clayman's whistle. Serve it on a Friday. They only get 5 calendar days to respond, provide everything I used successfully in court to attack anyone that sued me and has more money than I did. I think federal court's different. I have to look up. State in Washington, it's 14 days, I think, or 20 days. Crap. You have to respond. I'm not sure. Federal court.
These are answers that I don't know.
Wait. In the United States court agency, United States officer or employee sued in official capacity. Nope, that's different. Okay. Responding to a complaint to federal court. I'm afraid to make you disappear and show the website at the same time, so I don't think I have that technology yet. Oh, maybe I do. Okay.
You're welcome to, by all means, man.
Yeah. Oh, no. The American Bar Association is going to make me join them to read this.
Of course not.
Okay.
It's like having to pay Pacer, 10 cents a page or whatever it is for every document you pull.
Let's see here. Can I do... If I do... Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you're still here, but you're kind of covered a little bit. I think that will... All right. You're in the background. Um, response pleadings, complaint, practical law. Let's see what they have to say about federal court here. Because I'd be curious to see, like, if for some reason, because it's the holidays, right? And people might not be in the office, they might be on vacations. Like, what kind of response are you going to get, and when, if depending on the timeline that's involved?
Right. Things I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I dated a lawyer, litigator for a while, and they worked. She worked around the clock. So
Yeah.
but
Well, that's not giving me everything wants to just give me the court rules, man. That's all I want. All right, Federal Civil Procedure, Rule 4. Summons, amendments, general, requesting a waiver, failure to waive. I want response. If there's a lawyer in here and they know, because sometimes lawyers jump in here and they will definitely correct me whenever I'm wrong, and I appreciate it so much because I'm just an idiot who is trying to read this stuff as fast as possible. That's all about service. Is it Rule 5? How do I get to Rule 5? Let's go next. Title 3. Oh, now I'm back to the President here. All right, I'm just going to look at the chat and just hope that they can help us out here. But
yeah, I actually I don't know the role, what the rules are, but and I think I don't know if anything's changed in lieu of pandemic and everything moving electronic, or I don't know if that's affected. I mean, they've made it. Arizona's made it easier than I guess years past from what I was told for this process. So.
Oh shoot! I totally did turn the Chrome off. I was going to get in the. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you're back on video.
No worries.
Let's see here. Everybody is fighting over AMC GME in the chat here, guys. Don't worry about that. Let's keep it on topic here. Do we have any lawyers in here today? Or just a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who didn't get that far? Okay, reset the chat. And if you see anything that pops out, by all means.
Yeah, the Liz, I don't know, is it, I want to say Clemens, Russell.
It's 5 days to request information, she says.
For like interrogatories and things like that, but
thought those. I think it depends on the court.
I think these are things I don't have the answer to. Like I don't know when service was, etc. So I mean, I can find out and circle back, but that's kind of outside my wheelhouse.
Yeah. How people talking about the Lakers? Goodness gracious, people.
Jailhouse lawyers, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think you put it politely with ne'er-do-wells, but I was like, yeah, jailhouse lawyers, there's got to be some.
Yeah. We're doing our responses in pencil on, scrap pieces of paper. It's like a lot of those appeals judges. They are dealing with tons of like toilet paper responses written in pencil by jailhouse lawyers. It's pretty amazing. All right. Well, I don't know if they have other questions for you here. We may have covered whatever they think we need to cover. I would love an update. Maybe we'll check in after the 8th and see if they responded.
Yeah, no, it'll be. I'm interested to see what the response is.
Yeah.
See if it follows the same kind of form that their initial complaint did, which was just kind of like a dumpster fire or boilerplate. But no, I appreciate the having me on, and I'll definitely keep you in the loop for sure.
Totally, it's it's going to be something that's I think going to be cited by others in cases to come for sure. Whatever the outcome is, if there is a ruling, if it makes it that far.
Yeah, it's part of the reason for doing this. I mean, there's case precedent, like the people, Larry Flint, so on and so
Yeah.
forth, and there, but that's I don't. I didn't find any immediate like pertinent case law in terms of like recent, where there was a ruling in parody at this within this particular
Yeah, I assume that most of that stuff
issue.
gets settled out of court, so there's nothing they can go by with precedent. So this might be, you know, what do they call it, a first term case. What's the term?
Like a landmark or
Yeah, landmark. Landmark's probably what I'm looking for. Yeah, it'd be something that you might get the ACLU backing you guys up, and that'd be a good one to have write you a brief. Would be ACLU on this.
yeah, because it wasn't. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's the somebody. Yeah, the only it would be because it circles back to the First Amendment issue, but like the people have been sending me hate mail saying it's not First Amendment because it's Twitter, and I'm like, if you think this is solely about Twitter, then
Yeah.
you completely misunderstood what I'm fighting for.
Yeah.
Twitter is secondary, tertiary in the grand scheme of things. But no, it'll be interesting to see. If that's why I'm like, if anyone has the experience, I actually didn't think about the amicus briefs until you mentioned it. So thank
Yeah.
you. That would be helpful, and spread the there's a couple of smaller independent journalists picked up the story. So
Yeah. I mean,
more
it's,
eyeball, more
I,
eyeballs, the better.
I bet you can probably get, I don't know how much reaching out your lawyers can do, but I bet they can reach out to The Onion, to The Daily Show, to Saturday Night Live, to like other things that satirize and parody, and be like, hey, if they can rule against this guy, what can they do to us? And get sort of some heavyweights behind you.
Right. Which the one response that I did get from one of, well, I'm not going to cite them specifically,
Yeah.
but to throw them under the bus unnecessarily, but within that realm of outlets you were talking about, they were within that kind of they had that notoriety, and they reviewed everything,
Yeah.
and they came back with saying the editorial board believes that your case is too controversial to cover at this time. However, once it's deciding, once there's a ruling,
Yeah.
we'll reconsider.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, so you're afraid of getting sued, basically.
Yeah.
So I think if it's as we saw the other day with Benzinga and the AMC GME,
Oh yeah.
FUD that went out, and that I like immediately pulled from the Bloomberg terminal, screenshot, put out there, and was like, nowhere on there is this except under social sentiment.
Yeah.
But I forget where I was going with this. If one outlet publishes, I think others will be less apprehensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just I think if I was a substantial media outlet or journalist, whether they had an interest in my company or not,
Yeah.
albeit whether it be advertising dollars or ownership, I would be a little intimidated. 45th wealthiest person in America who is clearly litigious.
Yeah. You ever what's the John Oliver episode about the litigious coal baron who was trying to sue the John Oliver show over them satirizing him? Oh, if someone has a link to that episode, let's see here, Oliver coal lawsuit. Yeah, so John Oliver, I'm gonna just post a link here. He did an entire episode about slap lawsuits because he was getting sued by this guy who owned a coal mining company, and for satirizing him and making just ravaging him. So I put that in the chat there, and it's a brilliant half-hour episode that ends with like this 4-minute long Broadway song and dance about just what a miserable piece of shit the guy is. And basically the John Oliver show is like, hey, Come and try me. Do it. We got HBO lawyers behind us. We can fight anything.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have HBO money behind me. I'm
Yeah.
self-funded, but
Yeah.
I get it. I just saved that link, so
Okay.
I love John Oliver's humor. But
It should be on YouTube. You
okay.
should be able to watch it on YouTube. I think after like a few days, it all just goes on YouTube, on the
Gotcha.
YouTube channel. But yeah, I will if I think of folks that can come to bat for you with briefs and to lend some gravitas, to you. I'll try to send them your way. I don't really have, I don't have much of that myself, but you know, I can think of things and send you names. And you can go, all right.
You know, I appreciate it. Like even just conversing like this, like the thought of, like I said, you totally nailed the amicus brief thing. Something I had not considered. Yeah, a concept I was familiar with, but had not considered. So that in itself is is stellar.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, my personal Twitter, they can DM me, or if they go to citadelair.com, if they can, at the very bottom, you can leave like a comment or type of thing, and it just gets emailed to like hello@citadelair.com, the general email.
Okay.
If anyone has feedback or they want to say hi or whatnot, I get a lot of weird messages, but
Yeah.
they can do it through anonymously or with their information if they want. I don't care. Through the website.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about this. This is, opening people's eyes to the countermeasures that the short hedge funds are launching against people. It's not just short selling. There's a PR campaign involved, and we saw that with like market watch articles being published 10 minutes before the market actually took a dump. Oh, the market took a dump today, and it's like, well, that was published at this time, and then 10 minutes later, then it took a dump. We can see that, and it's interesting. The SEC today announced pressing charges against a taxi medallion company in New York that was.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, they paid a PR firm to do all these like fancy stories about them to boost their stock. And I don't see how it's any different than paying a PR firm to do the opposite, to trash talk. Like That's market manipulation. So, oftentimes the SEC seems to go after the little guys, not the big guys in these cases. But maybe they're hopefully working their way up. I don't know.
I don't know. It's one of those things that they're the federal government. I describe as they move at a glacial pace.
Yeah.
It's so. If something's in motion, you'll see it in 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if there is stuff, because everyone's always ranting, on about the SEC on Twitter. But like, we live in a society of instant gratification, and it's like, I was like, that's not how the federal government works by any means. So.
Well, right on. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do like a half hour of my regular show here try to go through the chat and get people talking about stuff. But I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Right on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll check in with you post around the 8th or whenever that 30-day mark is, where I think they have to respond by in federal court. But we'll find out. You'll find out. Everyone will find out.
Sure.
Yeah. And take care. Enjoy the rest of your holiday week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same to you. If I don't speak to you, Happy New Year and whatnot, and I'll drop your line as soon as I hear something, man. Thanks.
Perfect. All right.
Later.
How do I get out of... Sorry. There we go. All right. There. Okay. There we go. All right, everybody. I can't switch over to my normal scene because the camera... Wait, not that one. Yeah, camera is only working on Zoom, so we're going to stay on Zoom here while Zoom's open. All right. So I got like half an hour before I've got to go and take someone to the airport and go slip sliding around the ice sheet that is Seattle. But what is on your minds, folks? What can we chat about here? What is the big news today? So someone just said crypto is crashing hard again. So that's something to look at. Let's crypto. Where are you, crypto? There you are. Oh, whoa, everything just fell off a cliff real quick. What's that all about? Well, it's bouncing down to places it went, but it's doing its thing. It's going boing, 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 boing as it runs along. I want to thank Citadel Air for coming on, for Christopher Britt coming on. He might not be like, it's balls of steel, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal to like take on a case like this and self-fund it. It's expensive. Those lawyers aren't cheap. And man, thanks for coming on and telling your tale and being so cool, calm, cool, and collected. That's a salute. Hats off. Okay. So people want to talk about the 40% short interest reported by TD today. It's interesting because Ortex in November was reporting a 13% short interest on GameStop, but other financial reporting services were reporting 113% short interest. 70 million shares have been shorted of GameStop. And so now we've got these competing brokerages talking about the short interest of these stocks, and TD says the AMC's at 40%, which is much higher than what's being reported by Ortex or FINRA. These are self-reporting. These groups self-report how much they've borrowed. And now there's rules being proposed that lenders are going to be required to report. So when that short interest gets calculated, it's going to have the people who lend the stock is going to have to file and send off like, hey, I just lent out 1 million shares of the stock, count that. Or I just got 1 million shares back, delete it. So that's why we're getting different accounts from different groups. There's not much cohesion. And then you have groups like S3 who calculate their short interest in a weird way, where they used to calculate it as how many shares have been lent out. And then all of a sudden, October of last year, they changed it, and all of a sudden the short interest went from like 200% down to like 20. And that's because they only counted the most recent round of lending. So if you have an institution that lends a share that's lent, and then the short sells it, and if that share gets bought up by another institution and lent again, they just ignore the first time it was lent, even though now there's two synthetics for that one share. And all of a sudden, S3 data just plummeted as a result of that. So the short interest reporting and calculation for a lot of these groups are wacky because they're all done differently, and it's all through volunteer reporting. And so it's weird. Let's see here. Naked Brands, after dropping a lot when they did their reverse merger, their reverse split. Where's Naked at? Naked. Hey, Naked climbed a lot today. Naked's up 9%. No, they're up 15%. Not too shabby. Almost 20%. Holy shit. Yeah, they've gone up a lot. They've gone up $1 something today. Naked Brands. If you guys aren't familiar, Naked Brands was like a apparel company, and they just did a merger with a Chinese electric car company that is making deliveries like crazy all over the world. And so they're switching gears. Their stock was at like 50 cents. They did this 15-to-1 reverse split, and their stock all price was something like $6. And then they got shorted down for the last 10 days or so, and all of a sudden today the prices are spiking, and they're expected to be at CES showing off their lineup of all these electric vehicles. They are the cheapest electric vehicle brand if you want to buy a share out there, and they were really cheap when it was like 50 cents a share, but they've been shorted to heck, and they are definitely shortages play that everyone's been looking at, and they popped when everything else popped back in January, but right now you don't really want to bet against these electric car companies, especially electric car companies that are selling cars. It's different than electric car companies that getting sued by the federal government for not producing anything. So they're making deliveries, and their stock price climbed 20% today. So all right, what's that mean for me? Because I had bunch of shares. Well, still down from the peak, but doing all right. Doing all right. Okay. Andrew Boy asks, when metamaterial? So, there was a really cool DD that was published on Reddit today about metamaterial in relation to SPAC. So, like, one of these foreign companies want to merge with something that's on the NASDAQ so that they can be traded on a major American exchange. There's different foreign rules about how those stocks are traded. And they end up having to cover those foreign stocks in a big way. So they compared it to Newegg merging with a Chinese company, and Newegg stock, the Chinese company stock went from 4 cents to $4 almost overnight. And then Newegg stock 6 months later shot up from $4 to 73, 77, somewhere in there. And so now we're looking at, and that was related to a T35 from the last options available for the stock. And so the last options available for Torchlight, which is the company Metamaterials merged with, is the yearlies on January 21st. Starting, I believe, at midnight, New Year's, the Torchlight preferred shares, the MMTLP shares, become Oilco, which I'm not sure what their symbol is going to be. And Oilco is now the holding company for the oil leases that they own. Supposedly, there's someone who's going to be buying those oil leases in January. So right around the time that those Torchlight preferred shares switch over, the old Torchlight shares, the Metamaterial 1 or whatever they're calling it, that are still being traded via options, the options chain, and the sale for the oil fields I'll go through should be right around the same time. So I'm assuming that weird stuff's going to happen. What type of weird stuff? I'm hoping it's upwards weird stuff, but we're going to see. I'm basically holding all of this purely as I'm curious to see what happens type of play. George is probably the only CEO who was out there basically saying, hey, these companies have been short attacked like crazy, and there's a bunch of synthetic shares out there. He was talking about that around their merger last June, and he was the only one that was like, hey, they shorted Torchlight to the tune of a whole bunch of shares, shorted them down 21 cents, and now they got to go out there and find these shares, and I don't think they've closed at all any of those positions. Just in my head, Merry Christmas. I'd love to hear you speak on everything. Don't look up movie that $4.99 will buy me. Please untie the knots in my stomach. If you guys haven't seen Don't Look Up, I highly recommend it. I thought it was marvelous. Not just from the point of view as an apocalyptic astronomer, but just sort of as a commentary on the human condition, the modern human condition. If you guys don't know the basis of it, some astronomers discover a comet, realize the comet is coming to crash into Earth, and they got 6 months to live, basically. So now they have this uphill battle to try and get the U.S. government to do something about it. And, the politicians are like, oh, like my poll numbers right now, I've got midterms. I don't know if it's a really good time to bring up the end of the world for everybody. So let's just table this and, we'll figure it out later. And then they try to leak it to the press, and the press is like, oh, these aren't really doing great numbers, so we're not really talking about this anymore because we have to think about our website hits and our clicks. And then of course the scientists are like, wow, the world's gonna end, do something. And then they start getting memed on the internet, and it's in the end they just put the only spoiler in the end is that you root for the comet. You're like, we deserve to die. that's kind of the just I really hope that comet just kills every person in this movie because all of us are terrible. It's really good though. It's phenomenal. I highly enjoyed it. What's weird is that all the reviewers are like thumbs down, and everyone who watches it I love that movie. So I think we can all see a little bit of ourselves in it. Yeah. Okay. Number of Letters, the movie about Houston Waits, but I loved it so much. Kinda. I did see myself a lot in Dr. Mindy. I was like, glad glasses, beard, dresses like an idiot, and goes on rants. I can identify with this. They did a really great job with casting. Holy crap. Jennifer Lawrence was so hilarious and exactly like every woman I was in school with for astronomy. Like, nailed it. She was like an amalgamation of all of them in one person. It was pretty brilliant. Yeah. All right. Let's see what other guys can talk about. I only got like 23 minutes that I've got left that I can chit chat before I got to bail. And then I'll see you. I'm going to do a recorded show with Jackson Hunter tomorrow evening. I'm not sure when he's going to post it. Maybe a Friday night show will post it. But I'll be on Jackson Hunter sometime this weekend. But we're going to record tomorrow evening. And so look forward to that. Lovely man that he is. Let's see here. Mike Marguscio, super random. But what position did you play in baseball? I was a pitcher, and not just a pitcher. I was a knuckleballer, so I had no friends. They don't do with me. They're like, he throws weird. Like in college, it always was. The two main catchers who did most of the role refused to catch me, and so the only playing time the backup catcher could get, the third string catcher, was if they took me on, and so like it'd always be like my only friend of the baseball team was the backup catcher because no one else wanted to catch for me at all, and so it'd be like me and Casey would be like this because he was a freshman and no one wanted to catch me, and so he was the guy who called my bullpen sessions and would catch me when I go out in the field. That's kind of how being a knuckleballer works, is that they just hate getting hit in the face, catching balls in the dirt, and it just is annoying. And there's certain weird rules in major leagues. Catcher's mitt is allowed to be up to 48 inches in circumference because the catchers in the 1930s and 40s, when all these knuckleballers started getting bigger and bigger and bigger mitts. They had these ridiculously comically large mitts that were like a soccer goal in size. And so Major League Baseball finally put a stop to it and said, no, this is as big as a mitt can be at 40 inches in circumference. So basically the waist of a good chunky person. Even then, that's still a comically large mitt. So there are certain advantages you would want to take as a knuckleballer, and that is a nice big fat mitt, so something just would always end up in the mitt. Because I don't know where it's going. The catcher doesn't know where it's going. The hitter no one knows where the ball is going. The minute it leaves my hand, there's no spin. So depending on which way I'm holding the ball to get with the seams, the ball is coming and it's not spinning at all. So there's no gyroscopic action to it. It's not cutting through the air, so it's not being determined as to which way it's going to be going. But it is dependent upon whatever the air is doing itself, where the thermals are, where the wind is. So the ball dances, and it dances, and it dances, and it dances. If there's a breeze of gust, it can push one way or the other. I ended up beaning people in the head more than once with a knuckleball because I threw it what I thought was down the middle. The last second, it just hit him in the head at 55 miles an hour. Knuckleballs are weird, and if it's windy outside, do not put a knuckleballer in. Just don't. I remember we were playing. Was it Concordia? Cascadia? Cascadia. Is that the name of the college? It's a Christian school in Portland. I can't remember. But I got put in relief, and the wind was blowing like 40 miles an hour. And it did not go well. I remember walking like a dozen people. We were already getting hosed by that point. But I remember beating people. I think I ended up getting 3 strikeouts at the end of the inning, but I wouldn't doubt if like 12 runs crossed the plate in the meantime because the wind was blowing so hard. It was gnarly. All right. We got Jack Tierney giving me some coordinates here. Let's go scene. Let's go Google Earth. There we go. And let's figure out these coordinates. Control D. Bam. We're flying. Where are we going? We're going across the Pacific Ocean. We are going to... Where am I? Where am I? What nation am I in? Am I in the Philippines? Where am I? Japan? I couldn't tell where I was going. There is something here. Looks like a dome of some kind. I don't know what this is, but it's got a lovely view from up here. What am I looking at? On top of a hill. We're on Route 208, which is this the Philippines? It is. Gotta get my brain facing north here. So near Luzon. I don't know what I'm looking at there, Jack, but it's got a great view from wherever that hill is. It looks like a ruin of some kind. Looks like that was a dome or something. I don't know what I'm looking at, Jack, but welcome to the Philippines, I guess. Grandpa Barney. Grandpa Barney's in here. Hey, my brother. Shout out. And how do I find you on Twitter? I have a great snowing. Hope it's an easy one. People can't drive in it. No. Please stay off the roads so we can do our job. Just saying. Yep. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. At the Wooston is my Twitter handle there. And I posted Twitter because someone right after the show sent me an article about it was a Grumman F-11 or something like that, that shot itself down during test flights. Because you asked that question about can an airplane basically catch up to its bullets. And so there's a test flight of, let's go back to go back to Zoom Houston there. There's a test flight of, this Grumman was going for like 20,000 feet and doing a strafing run. And then hit its afterburners and then ran into its own bullets and shot itself down. So yeah, so your question totally can happen. The jets that can push faster than the speed of sound can catch up to their own bullets. So that's something they, I guess, have to take into consideration if they're doing a dogfight. But yeah, at the Wooston is my Twitter handle. So catch me on there if you ever, send me DMs and things like that. No Revolution 105. It is Crypto Night in America, according to Melissa Lee. I don't know what that means. But interesting. Is crypto still dropping? I haven't checked for 5 minutes. Oh, Jack Tierney. It's the bust of Ferdinand Marcos. Google image it. Ah, so the dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Ferdinand Marcos bust. Ah, okay. So if we go to there. All right. So this is what we were looking at. That's why it looked like a bombed out building. So it looked like this at one point. Now it's totally blown out. And it's got holes in his eyes. It looks like Geordi from Star Trek. So that was what it looked like back in the day. So that is Esmeralda Marcos, the lady with the shoe collection. Here's with the bloody nose. That's awesome. Oh, this is what it is now. It's now just a like a robot skull. Ah, thank you. That is an interesting spot. So that's what it's done over time. So it's just a scaffold now. Crazy. Oh, don't play a video because I'm gonna get some sort of crazy hit from those guys trying to take away my monetization, annoy the hell out of me. Interesting. Thank you. That's a good spot. Number of letters. I'm scared one day someone will give you coordinates of a dead body. They may have at this point. There's a lot of weird farm fields people have taken me to. Spots in the woods that make no sense. There was recently, I think in Tacoma, Washington, a body was found via Google Earth. There was a developmentally disabled man whose mother was his caretaker. And I guess his mother died, and he didn't know what to do and got locked outside in the backyard and ended up dying in the backyard. And somebody going through Zillow or Google Earth found a weird outline of a body in the grass, and they called the police, and the police found the man's corpse in the backyard. So it has happened before. People have found bodies via Google Earth. So it wouldn't be the first time. But I wonder if one of you serial killers are going to point me to like where you stash them all. Yeah. Cough burp. Don't know if it's ever looked at in here. Thought it was cool. This better not be... That's good. Western Hemisphere. We're not going to send me the Eye of Africa again, are you? All right. Scene. Google Earth. Oops. Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are you taking me? Going back to Merca, I believe. We're going to somewhere in the flatlands. Somewhere... Oh, wait. Someone pointed me to this one. And there was not the thing here that thought was there, which I think was supposed to be a B-2 bomber or something. If I remember correctly. Maybe I can go back in time. Is there... I can go back to 85. That's not helping anybody. The internet. So this is what that place looked like in 1985. Okay. Well. And... Oh, here we go. I can go back all the way to 85. So let's zoom in. So that is 85. Let's go to... That does not look like it's a B-2 bomber. Zoom in a little bit. Try 2016. There it is. 2016. So the 2016 image, there's a B-2 bomber that's caught on the image. That's pretty rad. That's what everyone's trying to show me. That's crazy. Look at that. That's weird. I wonder what camera they're using to get this, because it looks almost thermal imaging, doesn't it? Weird. Weird. If you want to learn about B-2 bombers and weirdness, Skunkworks. I talked about this on was it Stonk Bowl? This is a great book. Of course, it's mirrored because I'm in Zoom, but Skunkworks is an awesome read. I'm sure there's an updated version. This one's like 20 years old, but this was fascinating read about the top secret programs at Lockheed Martin to build crazy airplanes. They didn't get the contract for the B-2, but they built the F-117 and developed the technology for stealth. It's really cool stuff. No Revolution 105. She doing a show tonight with that title. Just thought it was odd since crypto is dipping. Okay. The crypto is dipping as far as I saw. What are you, buddy? You go outside? Your ears are cold. Did you have a good time outside? All right. Yeah, there you go. Give that little snoot up there in the monkey cam. It's a wild and crazy ride. Houston, you likely talked about James Webb Telescope launch success. I did a little bit. I touched on it briefly. The James Webb Telescope finally launched Christmas Day. It was supposed to launch in 2002. Got pushed off. Then supposed to launch in... and then, as a couple months ago, it was supposed to launch on December 18th. That got pushed back to December 22nd. That got pushed back to Christmas Eve. And finally, the morning of Christmas, launched that $9 billion mirror into space. And they got great video footage of it detaching from the rocket and the ship, and now it's going to go off to the L2 position about 1 million miles away from the Earth. And now there's 341 mechanical processes that must take place for it to unfurl and fold and everything come open. And if any one of those things fails, then we have a $9 billion piece of junk floating around space that's not going to collect any data. So NASA is just praying real hard to the astronomy gods that every single solitary moving part on that thing does not fail and works according to how it was engineered, and then unfurls and unfolds, and boom, we start taking pictures of deep space with that big, beautiful 6-meter beryllium gold-plated mirror. It's all going to be in infrared. It's infrared is the wavelengths it's shooting pictures in. And it should be able to have such high resolution that I wouldn't doubt we will be able to observe the atmospheres of faraway planets with it. It's going to have a few options, a few missions. Some of them are going to be deep space, looking back, 13.8 billion years, trying to resolve what's there in super high clarity. And other stuff will probably be planet hunting, looking for planets that we can observe with our eyes, because we only caught a couple of them with telescopes so far. But we'd like to be able to look at what their atmospheres look like. It's going to be cool. But we got about 6 months before first light happens. So it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for it to float out to that 1,000,000 miles. And then they got to unfold everything. And so, more waiting. We're waiting for May or June of next year before we can see what it's seeing. BTB Brand, the lack of simplicity is disgusting when they talk about deploying that telescope. Yeah. 341 steps to unfurl that thing to see first light. And it just looks like, you go flump, floink, drop, and it's open. No, there's a lot more involved with it. So yeah, they had to fold this thing up into a tube. So it's a tube that's, 10 feet across, 30 feet long, and it fits inside of a rocket, and then you launch that rocket into space. And now that it's in there, and you got to get it out, now it's got to go like full Autobot, Transformer style, and do all its unfolding. And because it's 1,000,000 miles away, it's still going to have tons of sunlight on it 24 hours a day. So they set up a shield, this thermal shield, with this really fancy insulating reflective stuff, and it's got 5 or 6 layers of it, and all that stuff unfolds to block the light of the sun so that it doesn't heat up the instrumentation, because instrumentation has to be kept super cold so it doesn't get errant photons and whatnot. And so this thing's basically going to have its back to the sun at all times, blocking the light of the sun. And if my light was the sun, then the mirror would be on the back side of my hand here to blocking that light, so that it's always super cold, super dark, and you can look at all the stuff in space for long periods of time there. It's pretty crazy. All right, what do I got here? Liz Clayman, Twitter unsubscribed me from following you. What? Am I in some sort of shadow ban? Maybe. I do a lot of fart jokes on there. Twitter is too classy for me, probably. Mike Marguccio, thanks so much for answering my question. I was a pitcher too. Knuckleballs are very hard to throw. Knuckleballs are hard to throw. They're hard to throw with velocity. If you guys want to delve into the physics of knuckleballs, we could talk about it for a sec, because I invented my own knuckleball. Traditional knuckleballs actually does not have your knuckles on the ball. You can throw one with your knuckleballs on the ball, but not very hard. Most pitchers that throw at the major league level, they put their fingertips on top of the ball and they keep their wrist stiff. So when they throw, their wrist doesn't snap and they just sort of let go of the ball and it floats and it doesn't spin. When I was developing my knuckleball was around the time I had my growth spurt. And for those that know me, my growth spurt was a very awkward thing. I grew more than a foot in less than a year and gained no weight whatsoever. I went from essentially 5'4", 118 pounds to 6'4", 118 pounds in like 9 months. And I was just in constant pain. I went from being one of the fastest kids in my school to being barely able to walk because my Achilles tendon didn't stretch with me. I had to wear like stupid pads in my shoes. I felt like Forrest Gump. And I had no muscle. I had nothing. I was just constantly pulling my muscles like crazy because I was just this long, lanky thing. Like imagine me, like 85 pounds less than I am now. That's how skinny I was when I finished my growth spurt. And so as a 12-year-old kid, I could throw a 75-mile-an-hour fastball. As a 13-and-a-half-year-old, I could throw like 40 miles an hour, and I'd pull my oblique doing it. And I love pitching. That was what I loved doing. So I ended up creating a knuckleball that I could use like a fastball. And what I did was I put one finger on the ball, and then I put another one with my knuckle down. And instead of keeping my wrist stiff, I could throw it as hard as I wanted to and snap my wrist, and then I'd flick this finger at the right moment. And so the snapping of the wrist causes backspin on the ball, and the flicking of my finger forward caused the ball to spin forward. And if I did it just right, if I had it dialed in, I could throw that ball just like a fastball, almost as hard, and have no spin on it. And what that resulted in was I briefly had the world record for the fastest knuckleball ever thrown at 78 miles an hour. But I think R.A. Dickey broke that record when he converted to being a knuckleballer. I think he crushed it, actually, because he could throw a fastball harder than I ever could. But it allowed me to make a range of knuckleballs go from 40 miles an hour up to 78 miles an hour. And so I could all of a sudden not just throw knuckleballs that bounced all over the place, but I could change speeds at will. And that was my key. That was what I did. And you know, it's like what would happen is that the first part of the season and through spring training is that I would get this giant bloody blister on the top of my finger, and I'd switch sides, and so I'd put the middle finger down, and that one would get bloody, and I'd just basically have just permanent coating of super glue on the backs of my fingers just above my nails all season long, and the balls would be coming in and they'd just be covered in blood because the way you'd be flicking it just would constantly be rubbing on there. So these balls had these streaks of blood all over them. It was a biohazard. The catchers hated it. But that's, if you want to throw a really hard knuckleball, you master that. If you got like a 10-year-old kid, you want to show them how to throw a knuckleball, you get them to the point where they can snap their wrist and flick their finger, and hopefully they'll get further than I did and get drafted, because it's totally worth it. Throw a hard knuckleball. Mathematically, a knuckleball has the most movement at 72 miles an hour. I can't remember the exact physics behind it, but it has to do with thickness of the air and whatnot. Knuckleball Headquarters is a great website for all these weird knuckleballers to chat, because no one ever wants to be our friends anyway, so we can only make friends with other weird knuckleballers, and they'll hang out at Knuckleball Headquarters. Oh crap, I got 2 minutes here. Fernando, I got tested for the COVID test and the results came back from the son of Bill Cosby. What? Just me. When you sell out your options, does the buyer have to exercise when in the money, or can the January options just not be exercised when in the money if not wanted? If they're in the money and they reach that expiration date, they will automatically be exercised, whether you ask them to or not. So the only way to keep them from being exercised is if it goes out of the money or if those person sells those options. Yeah, it was a crazy fast growth spurt. It was absolutely the most awkward, painful. My mom called it my praying mantis stage because it was like, ugh. And I went from this kid who was fast, and I remember, I think it was my first season of playing Babe Ruth ball during this growth spurt, and I had managed to get on first base somehow. I don't remember how. Maybe I got a hit, maybe I didn't. I wasn't hitting very well then because I was just this awkward, lanky thing with no muscles. And I was the kid who was like always stealing bases a year earlier, so I'd like steal a base on you. I don't care. I'd go anywhere. I was fast. And I remember leading off first base, watching the pitcher, seeing his really slow windup, and I think he may be in like a full windup even. I was like, I'm taking off on this guy, and I turned to go running. I just hear my mother yell, "Don't do it!" And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And by the time I made it off like 10 feet off first base, I was already hosed at second. I was so gangly and awkward. It took me quite a while before my body caught up to me. You know, like, yeah, I could finally dunk a basketball by the time I was like a senior in high school, but I didn't have the muscle mass to do it before then. I had no hops. I had nothing. It took a long time. Houston, what'd you get monkey butt for Christmas? I got monkey butt, a whole bunch of beef jerky. That's what she got. And then my mom got her this giant bag of chicken jerky that is the stinkiest stuff I've ever smelled in my entire life, but this dog loves it. So I keep that at my mom's house for when she visits. She gets a big old fistful of chicken jerky. Yeah. Moose, okay. Houston, hope you had a good Christmas. Love the stream updates, monkey butt camera. What a crazy year it's been hanging out with you in here. when I can. I love you, man. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. Enjoy. We'll do a New Year's Eve show for sure. Probably not one that goes past midnight because I want to go spend time with friends and family. But we'll be doing a show on Friday, probably earlier in the day than late night. Some of you that are Euro apes may be celebrating New Year's while I'm doing that. Yeah, so get real. Look up the Washington Redskins 1991 Super Bowl champs team picture. Look for the big and only blonde-headed guy. That's my brother. Well, let's see Get Real's brother in here. 1991 Super Bowl champions team picture. Mark Rippon was a Washington guy. He, oops, I got to go to that, right? Mark Rippon, he's from Washington State, I believe. Wazoo. Where's the team picture? Where's team picture? That's not the Redskins. Let's look, just 1991. It would be the 1990 team, right? 1990 Redskins team picture. There we go. Is this them? 42, 87, 91. There it is. Okay, that's a really small picture. Big blonde guy. Definitely not blonde. Oh, right there. Number 82? Was that your brother, Get Real? Right on, if that's him. I don't see any blonde guys, so that must be the big blonde guy. Fantastic. That's rad. That is rad. Doo-doo. That's so cool. That's so cool. How old was I when I had my growth spurt? It was between when I was 13 to 14. Was in there when I had my growth spurt. So I was probably 6'4", a couple months before my 14th birthday. It happened real quick. It was, and then I stopped. My feet didn't grow at all. Like when I was in 6th grade, I had size 14 shoes and this like tiny little 5 foot tall body. It was really, I looked like a clown. And my feet stopped growing then, and then I was like a puppy and I grew into it a couple years later. Oh, number 88. Number 88. 88. I'm trying to look here. See if we can bring it back up. This picture is really tiny. 82. 80. Is that 88? That's 86. 87. 88 looks like a black guy. that might be 89. I can't tell. Doesn't look like he's blonde. But that's still really cool. Man, what's that gotta feel like to like go watch your family member win like the Super Bowl? That's just rad. That's gotta be so cool. I had a girl that I swam with. She went on to win a silver medal in the 4x50 freestyle relay. She was the alternate for the 50 freestyle, and she won a silver. Like, that's freaking cool, man. Like, how rad is that? Like, just whenever you're applying for a job, you're like, yeah, I won a silver medal in the Olympics. And people can be like, well, I don't care who you are. You're hired just so I can hang out with you. That stuff's cool. I met another Olympian once when I was working in a restaurant years ago. And she had she was wearing a tank top. She had the Olympic rings tattooed on her shoulder. And I was like, hey, were you an Olympian? She's like, I was on the 2000 Sydney gymnastics team. And I was like, what? I looked her up. Sure enough, there she was. You know, a medal winner with the 2000 Olympic team. Like, that stuff is cool. Oh no, my meeting ended. So you can't see me anymore. That's okay. I got to go anyway. So what we're going to do for everybody is, I guess we're going to end it here. We'll see you guys on Friday. Look for me on Hunter Jackson's show, and I'll bid you guys adieu because I do have to like take someone to the airport now. Ready to do this? We're going to go boink.